Hello, viewers. Hope you're all staying strong during this pandemic. In our previous video lecture in phycology, we have looked into the applications of algae, be it in therapy or in agriculture, or their role in production of various industrial products, or even their significance in causing water blooms. What we will be looking into today are two more extension of the applications, that is immobilized and labeled algae. Now, when we are looking for production of bioproducts from an algae, whether it is enzymes or vitamins or polysaccharides, whatever be the product, if we are looking for the production of a bioproduct, it is difficult for us to achieve a unialgal culture or a monoalgal culture in an open cultivation system, for example, a pond or a tank. So, many of the industries look for illuminated bioreactors, and these illuminated bioreactors are better because there, if we immobilize the algae or if we attach the algae to a substrate or on the surface of a gel, or we are embedding them into a matrix, it gives us even better results. So when we talk about immobilization, it is essentially the physical confinement or the localization of algal cells to a region of space and making sure that they don't lose any desired biological activity. That is the meaning of immobilization. Now, why do we need immobilization? This is because when we don't have an immobilized system, when we have algal cells in the suspension, in the broth culture itself, there is a high production cost because of the slow growth of cells. Additionally, the product yield is less because every time we harvest the products, we are discarding the algal cells. So the yield goes down for a particular quantity of algae. And if we are looking into an algae which has been genetically modified, then we have seen that there is genetic instability in such algal cells and there is intracellular accumulation of the product. On the other hand, if we go for immobilization of algae onto a surface or into a gel, it enables us to use the biomass for a much longer period of time. And by immobilization of cells, the cell density in a bioreactor can be increased 2 to 4 times than in a suspension culture. So this enables us to use even a small reactor, thus reducing the cost of medium, equipment, installation, the downstream processing or recovery. All of the cost comes down because we get the same quantity of product with a smaller size of bioreactor. The cells, the algal cells which are being trapped on a surface or inside a gel, are also getting protected against shear forces. So a simple bioreactor design is enough because they are not going to be harmed by all the shear or by the industrial process. Also, when we do immobilization, it separates the cells from the medium. So even if the product is extracellular, it can be easily removed during the downstream processing. We don't have to necessarily look into separating the cells because the cells are already attached onto a surface. And when we do the immobilization, it couples the growth and product formation. So it allows the optimization of product formation without affecting the growth. That is also an important parameter or important benefit of immobilization of algal cells. When we do immobilization of cells, it promotes the secondary metabolite secretion also. In some cases, it has been seen. It minimizes the fluid viscosity, which is in case of cell suspensions is much more. So when we have a cell suspension, it can cause mixing problem, aeration problem, because we'll have thick algal growth there. Instead, if we are immobilizing the algae onto a surface, this problem is also getting solved. So these are some of the benefits of an immobilized system in which we are making sure that the cells are remaining viable over an extended period of time. Now, for the immobilization to happen, what we generally do is, we know that algae have an inherent or intrinsic tendency to form thin films on filters or on water pipes. We know that. So it's very easy to immobilize the algae. The materials which are being used for immobilization, unlike bacterial or enzyme immobilization, one thing to remember here for algal immobilization is that algae need to do photosynthesis. So the material we use should have high transparency so that the light is able to penetrate inside. Additionally, the immobilizing material should not be toxic to the algae. It should be resistant to the abrasive action and shear that is seen during the industrial production. The material should be sterilizable and easily removed during the downstream processing. So these are some of the examples of materials which are commonly used for immobilization. The material which is going to be preferred will differ based on what principle or what technique of immobilization we are going to follow. So these are some of the principles or techniques of immobilizing algae. The first one is adsorption. Adsorption is a process wherein the algal cells are bound on the surface of an inert support such as alumina or silica gel or carboxymethyl cellulose or even starch. So here the cells are only getting adsorbed onto the surface of the support. On the other hand, we have entrapment, wherein the algal cells are getting trapped, or they are being trapped, encapsulated inside a polymer matrix or inside a gel. For this, the gel that we use is examples include polyacrylamide, collagen, gelatin, etc. We also have covalent coupling and cross-linking, wherein in case of covalent coupling, the algal cells are forming covalent bonds with the support. So these are very strong bonds or strong interactions wherein the algae form bond with the support. As you can see here, in case of adsorption, there is no bond formation. They are only getting mildly attached to the surface. So this can be easily reversed. This cannot be easily reversed. If we need to separate the algae from the support, we'll end up destructing both the algae as well as the support. So for the purpose of covalent bond formation, we use a polyfunctional agent, for example, glutaraldehyde. Now, when the algae form covalent bond with the support, that is called as covalent coupling. On the other hand, when the algae form covalent bonds among themselves, so these are the different algae which are forming bonds with themselves, that is called as cross-linking. So both covalent coupling and cross-linking can be brought about with the help of the polyfunctional agent, that is glutaraldehyde. As you can see over here, this is just a comparison to show you what are the different types of immobilization of algae, what are the materials that are being used, what are the advantages and disadvantages of each of these methods, and just a diagrammatic representation for you to understand this better. Now in this slide, as you can see, I have just put in some pictures of labs wherein the immobilization has been done. So here, this is a bioreactor, a small scale bioreactor for the wastewater treatment, wherein the immobilized microalgae are being used. So here the microalgae have been entrapped inside polymeric gels. This here is again the microalgae chlorella, which has been immobilized in polymer beads, and this is also being used for wastewater treatment. Here we have alginate beads which are having the algae Selenastrum and Scindesmus. These are being used for the removal of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, that is the PAH, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. These are toxic compounds which are found in the environment and they are very difficult to remove usually. So these are found in the coal deposits or in the oil deposits. And it has been found that these algae are able to break down or they're able to remove these high molecular weight PAHs, and they are able to clean up that particular environment. So this is again an experimental setup which has been done using immobilized algae. Some other examples of immobilized algae include the accumulation and removal of waste products in aqueous systems, like this can include heavy metals or ammonia, phosphorus. This again has been tried out with Scindesmus, which has been immobilized in carrageenan, and this has been used for the wastewater treatment. We also have Chlorella vulgaris, Scindesmus and Porphyridium, which also have been used for the wastewater treatment because they produce oxygen by photosynthesis, which can be used by the other organisms to break down the organic compounds. So the first and the third examples shown here are usually used for wastewater treatment or for heavy metal removal. We also have immobilized algae which have been tried for biosynthetic and biotransformation pathways. This includes Dunaliella, which is used for the production of beta carotene, or Botryococcus, which is used for the production of hydrocarbons, and Chlorella, which has been used for the production of glycolates. All of these have been tried out under immobilized conditions. We also have labeled algae, wherein the microalgae can be radioactively labeled or labeled with the help of fluorescent dyes, and this can again be helpful in various research purposes. One of the examples is wherein the algae are grown in heavy water, that is the deuterated water, and when they are grown in this deuterated water, the algae, as a regular part of their photosynthesis, take up the deuterated water as an electron source, and in turn they produce deuterated organic chemicals such as deuterated fatty acids or deuterated carbohydrates. So we can study the pathways, we can study their flow when we are using such deuterated compounds for growing the algae. The unique characteristic here is that if we need to produce a deuterated compound or a deuterated organic compound, it's much more complex. On the other hand, all we are doing is we are providing the deuterated or heavy water, which is a raw material, and the algae does the job of producing the complex organic compound, which is deuterated here. We can also obtain deuterated grease in the lubricants, which will have more half life than the hydrogenated lubricant. So this is one mechanism wherein the deuterated raw material can be provided to algae. Algae use that raw material and by the process of photosynthesis produce deuterated organic compounds which can be used for other purposes. We also have another example wherein the C13 labeled fatty acids can be produced. This again is done by providing C13 labeled carbon dioxide to the algae. So the algae, as a regular part of its photosynthesis, takes up the carbon dioxide and converts it into fatty acids. And these C13 labeled fatty acids can be used for various studies on the synthetic pathways or the metabolism. So instead of us putting in a lot of effort to produce C13 labeled fatty acids, all we need to do is provide the C13 labeled carbon dioxide, and algae does the work of producing the fatty acids. We can also have radio labeled or fluorescent dye tracers which are incorporated into the algae. Now here when I say into a targeted particle or cultured cell, we are essentially talking about the algae. And these algae are then taken in as food by the protozoan population or by the grazers. So it helps us when we label the algae and they are taken up by the grazers, it helps us to analyze the vascular contents of the grazer, or even the grazing pattern can be studied with the grazing rates can be studied with the help of this method. This was initially used with the help of fluorescently labeled bacteria, but in recent research they have seen that even fluorescently labeled algae are very helpful to study the protozoan grazing patterns and grazing rates. So this was about the immobilized and labeled algae, which is an extension of the applications of algae. So whatever be the application of algae, if we do it with the help of immobilization, we can achieve much better yields and much better product rates. And if we use labeled algae, for the research purpose, it gets very easy for us because algae do the job of photosynthesis and help us to produce complex organic compounds which are radioactively labeled. I hope you all have understood this class. Thank you all.